Okay, we're moving on to Jeff's story. It's the middle of page 44. There are some specific ways we can remind ourselves that our workplaces are opportunities for encountering the holy and the ordinary. Just as Jews use a mezuzah as a reminder of God's presence, we can use everyday items or experiences in the workplace to remind us that God is here with us in the midst of the ordinary and that He wants to engage with us in our work. Jeff works as a contractor consultant for a tech firm. When he began to consider the idea that his workplace was holy ground where he might encounter God, he decided to acknowledge God's presence and pray a blessing over his workplace as he entered the building each day. Like many employees in the tech industry, he uses a key card to get into the building. The activity of swiping his card to enter became a prompt for Jeff to ask God to bless the workplace. Every time he came into work, returned from lunch, or moved from one building to another, Jeff was reminded that God was with him in this ordinary office building, and so he would ask God to bless his workplace. Love that. Okay, your workplace, it's holy ground too. We're on page 45. Different people, different stories, different calls from God to see the space and place of work as set apart for God's purposes. Each story is a reminder that we too can be people committed to seeing God in the ordinary. Each of us can be used by God to bless our workplace, our place of work. When we see our workplaces as holy ground, it reorients our understanding of work to better align with God's. It may change the way we actually do our work or engage with others. You may read these stories and feel inspired. If that is the case, we hope that they will encourage you to connect with God in all the places He has deemed as holy. You may also read these stories and feel discouraged, sensing that your workplace and your work are too ordinary, too mundane for God to inhabit. Maybe you have gotten lost in the monotony of your work and find it hard to believe that God could breathe new life into the space where you go about your everyday tasks. If that's you, please hear this. You do not need an extraordinary job or life or workspace to connect with God and be used by God. God has always used the ordinary to accomplish His purposes. An unwed teenager in Rome controlled Palestine, bread and wine as sacraments, and ordinary Christians throughout the world going about their daily work. When God indwells ordinary things, they become extraordinary. The holy ordinary. God can use dingy staircases, cubicles, and mountainsides just as well as the corner office with a view. Your work does not have to be glamorous or newsworthy to be used in God's kingdom. He is just as pleased with the work of the custodian as that of the CEO. If that work is done with an attitude of worship and expectancy, then God will reveal Himself. It is not the spectacular that God generally uses, but the everyday. What makes our work most extraordinary has nothing to do with us and everything to do with God showing up in the midst of the mundane and bringing a new perspective. A miracle indeed. What would it look like for you to think about your workplace as holy ground? What would change for you if you started each day giving your workspace back to the Lord, set apart as holy? Okay, we're going to move on to the last section, which is the practice of workplace as holy ground. When God spoke to Moses in his workplace of Mount Horeb, He had him take off his shoes as a symbol of consecration, of setting apart and giving back to the Lord the space in which he stood. The practice of workplace as holy ground involves just that, a setting apart and a remembrance of God's consecration. As we have seen, it might be a prayer in the stairwell or a blessing as you swipe your card key. It may be experiencing God while sending invoices or praying that God's purposes would be accomplished in your company's conferences room. What might it look like in your workplace? Try devoting 2 weeks, 10 working days to this practice. Repetition involving your regular work rhythms will help this practice be meaningful and transformative. As you enter your workplace at the beginning of the day, do so at a slower pace than normal. Maybe you ride an elevator to your floor, regularly walk through the same hallway to get to your cubicle, or hold a key to get into your office. Use these physical objectives or spaces as a reminder to participate in this practice. Maybe there's a threshold in a doorway that you enter. Maybe it's a gate to a field or a door to a car. As you are riding the elevator or walking the hallway or unlocking your door, use this time to breathe a prayer of consecration. For example, you can say something like this: God, since my work is an act through which you can be worshiped, then the place in which I go about my work matters to you. I choose today to set this space apart to you. The physical setting in which I go about my work, this space is holy ground, set apart for your glory and for the furtherance of the kingdom. May I hear from you today in this place. Then go about your day. Choose something in your regular rhythm of work that will serve as a prompt to remind you. This could be something that happens at the same time every day, or a reminder on your phone, or a computer set to go off at a certain time. Whatever it is, find a way to remind yourself of your holy ground perspective and practice for the day. We encourage you to keep track of how this practice is going throughout the 2-week period, and then reflect on your experiences. You might even be able to practice this for the full month that we usually do these practices. So that's it for chapter 2. It ends on 47. Please make sure you answer the questions and reflect on those after you do this practice for a couple of weeks or 10 business days. And then I can't wait to hear what God spoke to you when we meet again the last Tuesday of every month. All right. God bless you. I love you. And I'll see you next time.